Hi, this is Richard Dunn from Evoca. In this video, we're going to talk about making the actual diffuse texture for the flames of the torch. Now, we're not going to be using any of the color information from the photos that we downloaded from CG Textures. You'll see why later, but using the grayscale gives us the ability to multiply a color over them later on, and we can have anything from normal looking fire through to green or blue or any other color that you might want. Gives us a lot more flexibility. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by creating a new image, and we want the image to be a black background. So if you look here, it says background color. That is referring to these widgets down here. The background color is black, so that's what we want. We want a black background. We want a width of 1024 and a height of 512. Power of two sizes. This could be 2048 by 1024, it doesn't matter, as long as they're power of two numbers. We're creating a 4x1 set of images, so we're going to be getting 256 images across and 512 high. So we'll create OK, click OK, and we're going to create some visual guides now to divide this image up. If you don't have these rulers showing up on your viewport like this, you need to go into Edit, Preferences off the screen down the bottom there, and you need to go into Units and Rulers and turn them on. Which brings up this. It's just a case of turning on rulers and setting them to pixels. And also making sure that they're turned on here inside the view settings. If we turn them off, you'll see they disappear. So it could just be you've got them turned off. So once you've got all that set up, we want to start dragging out some grid lines. And if you see here, is snapping. That is because we've got snap turned on here, and we've got snap to guides, layers, and bounds on. So what we're going to do is we're just going to snap these to the edges just for consistency. Yours may not be yellow, that's completely fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set these to even amounts of 1024. Now you can either drag these out, and then you can see it says 512. It'll snap to the grid line at the top up here. The other way you can do it is to type in a value. So we can go View, New Guide, we want a vertical guide, and we want one at 256 pixels. And there's another one. So again, we can go to the next one, which is 768. But as you can see there, that doesn't want to snap very well. So what we can do is drag that back, View, New Guide, Vertical, 768. And there's our layout. So we're going to have a flame there, etc., etc. So we have 4 frames. So it's a 4-frame flipbook, a 4x1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to save that. And I'm just going to call that Torchfire 4x1 using the X key. And we're going to save this as a PSD because this is a Photoshop document. Right. So now our work is saved, and we now need to start on the actual creation of the texture. So the first thing we want to do is open up the 4 images that we downloaded earlier on. So we're going to go File, Open, and we're going to come into Fire Texture Source, which is where I saved mine, and these are the 4 images we saved. So we're going to just select them all, and we're going to open them. Okay, now that we have all our images open, we can see them all along the top here. So the first one we're going to work on is this one here, 0025_3. Now, there's a little trick to lining these up that I'd like to show you. make sure that your background color is set to black. And rather than rotating these and cropping them, what we can do is we can just go straight into the crop tool and put your cursor just outside. Now if you notice up here, if we come in here and we come out, we have this, and it auto grids, and you'll notice it's automatically filling the background with black. So what we want to do here is we want to just get the flame how you think is vertical. This is going to vary from person to person. Personally, I think it's about there. And we're going to come up until we're in black. Yes, there is a slight red halo around that, but we're going to deal with that. This is a photo taken outdoors, so there's a certain amount of atmospheric light being thrown on the smoke, which is what this red glow is, but we're going to get rid of that. What we're going to come down to is come down to about there. As you can see, this is actually a torch. This is a real torch that's been photographed. And you can see there's the end of the stick. So what we're going to do there is we're just going to cut out enough that we've actually got all the fire. And then we can click this tick, or we can just hit enter. Deselect it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to copy this into our document. So we're just going to drag over there, Control C, and we'll come back into our PSD and Control V. Now you can see it's way too big. Now this is another thing that I want to talk about. When you're doing non-destructive workflows like this, you want to try and use smart layers or smart objects as much as possible. Now, this layer 1 here, this is our image that we've just pasted in. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on where it says layer 1, convert to smart object. And you'll see you'll get this little icon down here. Now to edit this, the benefit of this smart object is that any edits you do to this image will transform through the layers. It creates a hierarchy. So what we want to do is we want to fit this to this. So what we're going to do is we need to press Control T. And you can see now it's created, if we zoom out by Control minusing, we can see it's created the bounds of the image. And we can drag this up and Control plus. Now we can snap these to the guides, or we can just put the cursor in the space here and drag it. And what we want to do is we just want to snap these to the bounds. But we're going to do more than that. You remember we talked about overdraw. Right now, this has got a lot more overdraw than it actually needs. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually erase this lick of fire here, because that's going to create a repeating pattern that's going to be quite noticeable. So we're going to bring that out, and we're looking here. This is about as close as we want to get to the boundary of the flipbook. And we can probably stretch that one out to about there. And that is probably about what we want to see for this image. So we can just press enter. And the next thing we want to do now is we want to start isolating out the background, getting rid of any of this noise and any of this dark red color. Now this dark red color you see here, incidentally, is actually the color needed to recreate this fire, because this color is actually this brightened up 1,000 times. Just keep that in mind for later on. So the next step we're going to do here is we're going to start refining this frame. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take out all the color information. Now back to the non-destructive workflow. What we want to do is we want to apply all these effects to each image so it doesn't affect the next image, and it allows us to go back at any point in time and make changes to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have that fire layer selected, and we're going to come down here to this round symbol. and we're going to click on that, and we're going to choose hue and saturation. And what it's doing is it's giving us this interface. Now we can shut that, we don't need it from there. The way that we access that from here is we click on the little circle, double click it. Now at the moment, this layer is affecting everything underneath it, and that's going to be a problem later on. So what we want to do is we want to parent this effect to just work on this fire. Now if you hold down the Alt key and move your cursor over the bottom edge, you'll see this. If you look under here, you'll see this little white box with an arrow. Left click, and you'll get this little arrow here indicating, pointing down at this layer. Once you've got that, you can open up the circle and take your saturation down to nothing. Take it all the way to the left, and as you can see, our image is now black and white. That's all we have to do with that node. We then want to create a node to clamp these values. We want to get rid of these colors that are in the background here, and if necessary we need to play with where the white cuts off. At the moment, if we click on the eyedropper and we put that over the fire and we look up here, in here there's nothing here at the moment, but if you watch this, you can see we have 255 there, and that's pure white. So we can't go any whiter than that, but you'll notice our black is, well, it's reading off the background layer at the moment, but our black is actually not black. It's 15, it's 18, it should be at 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another one of these layer effects. So we need to come down here and we want to create curves, not levels but curves, and we'll shut that. And as you can see, this one has not parented itself to this one either, so we need to do the same thing. We need to hold down Alt and click it. Now both these effects are linked to just this frame, so what we're going to do now is we're going to double click that circle and give ourselves some room here. And this is a profile of the image. To the left we have our blacks, and to the right our whites. So what we're going to do here, this is a skill that you'll use a lot in this industry. We want to try and get rid of the black basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this bottom and we're going to pull it across, and if you watch, it starts to disappear. If you look here, it's chewing into it, and we could go all the way through and gradually clamp that down, but of course that's far too much. We only need to go to about there, let's say 24, and we can play with it further. If we wanted to clamp these values, we could make it more areas pure white, but then we're losing all definition of the fire. It's losing that fluid shape that we're getting. We could also put an S-curve in it, like so, and play with the values. As you can see, we're just changing the general fluidness of the shape. But in this case, we just want to leave it straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to OK that, shut it, and we have these little artifacts here that are going to really stick out. We have this lick of fire here, and we have a little bit of noise here and a little bit of a spike here. Those are things you really want to try and avoid. So what we're going to do is we're going to erase these. I've just gone in Control Plus to zoom in, and this is where we're going to use those brushes. What we want to do is we want to create a mask. We don't want to just erase these, because then if we want to come back and edit them on this image, if we were to come in and erase that, there's no way of going back. You're stuck with it. This is the whole purpose of non-destructive editing. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this layer here, and we're going to come down to this big rectangle with a little circle, and we're going to click it. And what that's done is it's created a mask, and if we Alt click on it, we can view the mask. At the moment it's not there, so it's white. what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're painting black. So we need to select black as our foreground color. Make sure that it is black, 000. And we're going to come in and we're going to select our paint tool. And we're going to load up those brushes that we were playing with earlier. So we're going to come back up into here. We're going to go replace brushes. We're going to select Blur's Good Brush. And we're going to load them. And the one that we wanted, as before, was 3D Clouds, and it's this one here under Effects, 3D 3RT. Now I'm just going to quickly rename this one so I can find it in future. What you do is you select it, right click, rename, and we're going to just remove this, change this part to _ cloud. So now we can find it easily. Eventually you use these so often that you'll go through and you'll rename them. So now that we've done that, we have this brush. Now we're painting away by painting black on the mask. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the size of the brush down by using the left bracket key, and we're just going to massage out. And you see it does such a nice job of eating in, it leaves a nice organic edge. And if we look at the mask, what we've just painted, you can see that we've actually painted out pure black. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just come down and we're going to scroll down to the bottom. Just need to move my tools out so that I can actually get to my, there it is. I'm trying to work with limited screen space here, it's rather challenging. We want to make sure we're on the mask, and again we want to just paint out these artifacts like so. And that is actually one finished. That's all you really need to do for the diffuse texture. So what we'll do, just to be neat, and it's always good practice, is we're going to create a group. So click that, call this flame _1, and just select 3 layers, control clicking, and drag them onto that, and then you can hide them. So the next one that we're going to work on, and I recommend that as you go, you delete these or shut these files so you don't get the wrong one. The one that we used will be automatically selected, and it has the marching ants around it like that. So we'll shut that one because we're done with it. The next one we're going to put in is this one, 002549. So the same thing applies. We make sure that our background is black, like it is. We select the crop tool, we select outside of it, and then we straighten it up. Now we're not going to keep this piece up here, so we don't need to worry about that. We're going to erase that. So we only need to go to about there, and we only need to go down to about there. And we're going to OK that. We're going to select it, Control C, come back into here and go Control V. Now you can see another issue. This texture is now overlapping our old one. So what we need to do is we need to select the layer mask that we created on this, and we need to set it to being additive. Additive is a way of telling a texture that if it's black, it's transparent. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into our first flame, select the layer mask and go normal and change it to linear dodge add. If we come up here now, it's still there because we need to change this one. So we'll get to that shortly. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this one a smart object again, convert to smart object, Control T, we're going to zoom out, and we're just going to start scaling this down to fit, just like we did last time, and decide what part of this that we want to keep. I'm probably going to delete the very tips off these links at the bottom, so I'm going to leave that about there, and we're going to come up about there, and we can probably widen this one quite a bit. That looks about right, so we'll accept that by hitting OK or enter. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same old thing that we did before down here. So we're finished with flame 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have this one selected, and we're going to create the hue saturation layer again, and we're going to bring that all the way down. And we're going to parent that again by holding Alt. And then we're going to create another one. Same thing, curves. And this time we're trying to remove black as well. So we'll go to a very similar amount. Probably go to about there. About 23, 25. And as you can see here, this image is a lot brighter than this one. Let's shut this for a second and let's analyze this. This image has a lot of greys, but it doesn't have a lot of the white in it. We want to keep that balance fairly consistent. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're just going to start bringing this white out, like so. And we could always just back that off a little bit. Now you'll notice what's happening. It's affecting both images. This is because we haven't parented it, which we discussed. You see we are missing that link. So this is showing you what happens. So if we come in here and we link that again, that's returned back to its original. And we need to come in here and we need to create that layer mask and set that to add. And as you can see, that's now fixed that problem. And all we want to do here is the same thing we did here. We want to go into our layer mask, make sure that we're painting black, and we want to paint out this stuff up here. Like that. That looks about right to me. We may have some artifacts in there which we can check by again clicking Alt, holding Alt and clicking on the mask. If you think you've missed an area, just come in here and make sure there's no areas that are white. Like so. And again, just to be neat, we want to create a new group. Flame_2, enter. So we'll select these by control clicking, drag them into flame 2 and hide it. So now we can turn these off individually if need be. So I'm going to move my tools over to this side now. And the next one that we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to delete the image that we were just using, which is that one. Shut it because we don't need it anymore. We're going to use number 55 next. We're going to use all of this. So what we're going to do, make sure the background is black still. Come outside the image, rotate it straight. We're going to use all of that down to about here. So click on there, select, Control C, Control V. Right click, convert to Smart Object, Control T, and zoom out. You should be able to work this out fairly quickly now. It's the same process. We just want to maximize the area that we're going to be using in the texture. About there. So we can enter that. Same thing, we come into this layer, we add hue saturation, we desaturate it, shut it. Then we come in and we link it, and then we'll come in and we'll add a new curves, and we'll link it. That one's got a fairly good balance of color. You can see there's a consistency to the amount of grey and white in the image. There's no one brighter or light darker than the other. That's what you want. So what we're going to do there now is we're just going to pull off those areas around the flame that aren't black. If you remember, we come in here and we can look up here. We can see we have 7s and 5s, 6s. Out here we have 6s. We don't have any 0. So we need to come in here still, and we need to bring that down. And we'll shut that. And we can test it. 0s all the way across there, all the way down here we have 0s, 0s, 0s. This, by the way, is a test you want to do on each frame. You want to come in like this, make sure that you have that particular flame selected, and just test. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create that mask again on that layer. So we come onto there, make sure we're painting black, and we're going to paint out just this area down here. Just going to make the brush a little bit bigger, give us a more organic flow. Like so. And then we're going to just create another group. Flame_3. And that is really all there is to it. The next step we want to do is just do the last frame of this fire. So we'll close that one. And the last one is this really wispy image. It's a little different than the others because it's designed to give us some breakup. So what we're going to do is the same old thing. We're just going to make sure black is our background. And we're going to come in here and we're going to rotate it straight. And we're only going to use down to about here. We're not using this top lick. So we'll come down to about there. OK that. Select it, Control C. Come back into here, Control V. Now you can see here we've not done that thing with the additive, so we need to go back into Flame 2. Just check that that is set to linear dodge add, and it is. And the same thing on frame 3, and there's our problem. Okay, so we want to come over to here now, and we need to do our convert to smart object. Control T, drag it down, and we're going to maximize the width of this one considerably. We're going to stretch it out, but we don't want it to be too much wider. We don't want it to look wrong. So what we'll do is probably leave it about there. So we'll enter that, and we'll start doing the same process again. So we have that selected, hue saturation to 0. Alt parent, select the layer, curves. And this one needs brightening, as you can see. But let's just tweak that down a bit to get rid of any black, which it is. And let's just bring that across till we get no, that's not looking good. So I think we'll leave it there. Okay. So what we're going to do now is just create that layer mask. Same again. We're just going to paint out these areas that we don't want. And up here, we don't want any of this. Once you've done that, you could always come in and just use the blur tool and just soften that a little bit. And I notice there's some artifacts here which we need to address. But given that this is a flip book, things like that you really won't see because it's moving so quickly. So we'll just name this Flame 4. Make sure that all our information is under that group. Make sure that that is set to add. And that is our texture finished. So the only thing that remains now is to save this out. Now this doesn't have an alpha channel, as we explained earlier, because we're not going to use an alpha channel. We're going to be using this image as additive. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go File, Save As. I'm putting all my directory, all my information under my pictures in my case. We're going to save it as a Targa, and we're just going to call it Torchfire 4x1. And because we're not saving the alpha, we have RGB, 8 bits per channel. 8 times 3 is 24. So we want 24 bits. And we should do a final save as on this. Just save, make sure you have layers on to keep all our data that we've done. And that's that. So in the next chapter, what we're going to do is we're going to start putting together our particle system So we'll start by setting up Cascade. We'll bring a mesh into Cascade so we can see what we're adding the fire to, just as a reference. And we'll set up the fire particle system.